Welcome back to another episode of Retro ReWire in the Hunt. This time we are going to be visiting Video Game Wizards out in Portland, Oregon. And I had a pretty good time out here. And again, thank you to management and the staff for allowing me to film here. Let's start with the Super Nintendo goods. There's a Super Punch out there for $37. Haven't played that one in ages, and I remember renting it quite a few times, and that one was certainly fun. $41 for Yoshi's Island there, $25 for Super Mario World, and then $40 for, what's that, the player's choice of Super Mario Kart, and then Alien 3, which is, I'm not sure what the price on that one is. And then we have Rock and Roll Racing for $43, and then $17 for Super Adventure Island. That's not a bad price there. $27 for Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and then $49 for Turtles in Time. $17 for Super Return of the Jedi. That one could be a pricey one, complete in box. In Japan, we have Cool Spot there for $20. But yeah, overall a pretty good selection so far. $15 for Samurai Showdown, and then $17 there for Aladdin. So some pretty good, a pretty good variety. Secret of Evermore, published by Squaresoft there for $39. I remember playing that one way back in the day, and I didn't like it too much. Super Smash TV for $31. Raiden for $21, although I hear that port's not very good. And then Dragon's Lair for $19, published by Data East. In Japan, it's published by Konami. Magic Sword for $41. That's a fun title, by the way, especially the arcade release. And the PS3 version isn't too bad. That's bundled with Final Fight. But $17 again for Aladdin. Breath of Fire there for $55. I remember beating that one. That was one of the few RPGs that I beat on the old Super Famicom. And then here there's I forgot the name of the dog, but the manager there was just letting me that he's gonna let the dog roam around, which is pretty cool. That's definitely something you will never see in Japan. So there's definitely a lot of personality to this store. Final Fight for $15. And what do we have? Donkey Kong Country 2 for $20. Earthworm Jim 2 was coming in at $35. That's a great game, by the way. But the Donkey Kong games, the Super Famicom equivalents, you can get for about 100 yen, which is what, like 60 cents? But for some, the North American versions are the only option, the best option. For me, I'm not really too hung on. I'd rather just get the better deal. But great games, those Donkey Kong Country games, which I've never beat a single one. And that's something that, when I'm curating the collection, I have to really think about, just because a game has like a certain notoriety and it's considered really good amongst the community and gamers at large, maybe it doesn't really fit what I'm after for a collection. Anyhow, Xbox titles, what do we have here? And of course, I was looking for Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast. They didn't have a copy, but they did certainly have quite a bit of other stuff, like this Samurai Warriors and Samurai Showdown for that's part 5 there for $13. I used to have that one. Then there's some Mortal Kombat Deception for $17, and then Armageddon there next to it. 50 cent there for like 20 some bucks, I think. Capcom vs. SNK 2 for $32. Crimson Skies for $30. And this is going to be the stuff that's in the showcase there. Evil Dead. Forget that there was an Xbox game of that. Great movie, by the way, especially the sequel. And then we have The Suffering there for $28. Midway, man, they were really pumping out the titles back in the day. And then Ultimate Spider-Man for $34. I wonder how that one is. I believe that one could be cel shaded. And then there's Whacked for $34 and Sudeki for $41. And a Halo Combat Evolved, not for resale copy, for $47. A shame about that, Orta, but if you go to Hawthorne Game Exchange, just buy one of their cheap sports titles and replace that case. Problem solved. And Orta is compatible with backwards compatible with the Series X. It'll be 4K at a full 60. Beautiful game, highly recommended. And then we have Ninja Gaiden here for $10, $14. This one, you could, if you really hunt in Japan, you could probably find it for about 200 or 300 yen. And it is a region-free game, both the North American and the Japanese version. So it'll work with any region unmodded Xbox. And that was Midway's Arcade Treasure, but Volume 2 is where it's at. You see that? Mortal Kombat 2, Mortal Kombat 3, Gauntlet 2. That's an excellent collection. And I believe part 3 is also pretty good, as it has some of the polygonal Midway published games. And then Minority Report for $7. Like that movie got a game. It's been ages since I've seen the movie, but Soul Calibur 2 for $8. And a few sports titles. We got some X-Men titles there. But this is a pretty big original Xbox collection of games. I don't think I'll ever see something this large in Japan. But here's Bloodwake. I believe this is like a combat. Yeah, gunboat warfare. That one could be good. I don't know. Sometimes those games like Vigilante 8, Twisted Metal, those can be pretty fun. And that one may be no different. But yeah, really impressed with. And then there's the Da Vinci Code again. I need to look that up. I'm going to look up a video on the Da Vinci Code for the Xbox. I'm sure it's out on the PS2, possibly the GameCube. Here we have some Switch titles. And then in the back, it looks like comic books, figures. What do we have? Brigandine there for $90. And what do we have? Colors Live for $31. Chasm for $49. And then Hades for $29. What else? Sonic Shadow Generations for $55. I believe that one's fairly new. And it's pretty neat how they, bundle the loose carts there with like a little World Wizards of the Coast, or that's the publisher, I'm not sure, but those Magic trading cards. It's kind of neat. And then here we have like a Wii storage for your games, and that's coming in at $60. But it's nice that they have comics, they have figures, but they keep it in the back because the primary bread and butter is going to be the video games. But here we have some Wii games, quite a bit of Wii games. And then up top, look at this. This is like the final variant of the Wii Mini for $80. But I believe this one does not have Wi-Fi, and it doesn't support component out, which is a big shame. Why remove component? We got that baby blue Wii, which I have one of those. I found it in Portland, as a matter of fact, many years ago at the Goodwill. But yeah, pretty neat to see all this stuff. And then just keep making our way here. And here we have the Xbox One titles. And in here, in the showcase, I was pretty much looking for Dragon's Dogma 2. Unfortunately, they don't have it. But they did have a copy of Sekiro for $31, which I do have. And that game can be quite expensive, even the Japanese version. But I have a North American version, as the Japanese version only has Japanese language options, which is kind of weird. But that's to be expected from Software games. But we got Sonic Frontiers there for $26. And we have the Sega Genesis collection for $20. And Shadow of the Tomb Raider for $18. There was that Sekiro. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. They did have that for $23. But unfortunately, no Dragon's Dogma 2. And then behind me there is the PlayStation 4 games. Up top, a variety of stuff. Sonic Mania, the Collector's Edition, coming in at $85. That's a pretty cool box. But you know what? Guys, I think I'm pretty much done buying collector's editions, limited editions. I think the only ones that I'll get is going to be for the IRIM collections that are coming out. But aside from that, no more. Bioshock, the collection for $16, that was pretty good. That's a pretty good collection. But yeah, no more limited editions. It's just really hard to store that stuff. And it kind of breaks up the flow. Resident Evil 3 there for 30-some bucks. We got Wolfenstein, the combo pack for $30 and $15 for just the single. They had a Valkyria Chronicles. And we have Mega Man X Legacy Collection coming in at $25. And what else do we have here? Street Fighter V, $16. So yeah, a lot of these prices, anything under, if it's $20 or, under, they got quite a variety of, games that fit that what am I trying to say? That category. Bloodstained there for $12. I do have a copy of that, but I played it on the Switch. But the Series X, 4K visuals, it was a little bit blurry on the Switch, but I still had a good time. You kind of forget about it when you're in the zone. Control there for $14. Again, I don't think I'll ever see an Xbox One collection at a store of this size in Japan. Gaia is definitely going to be the best place, but here we have all Sonic, the plushie. This is kind of a nice little touch. Keep out. And then we got a Dreamcast there. This is a Japanese one, region locked, and there's some Wii's. Now the Wii, you could buy a Wii with the Wii pad for like $16. And you know, like if you want it complete, you know, sometimes you can get it for like $20. That's in Japan, of course. But they are only in Japanese and they are region locked. So keep that in mind. Here we have some Blu-rays. I did look through those. And then we got some GameCube titles there. And then we'll just take a little peek here at what they have at the top. Look at that Street Fighter V arcade stick. That's pretty huge. But anyhow, what do we have here for the GameCube? Open Season for $10. Meet the Robinsons for $9. And Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer for $13. I used to have this on the Cube. In fact, I sold my Dreamcast and the entire collection to get a GameCube to play all the Resident Evil games. And Kelly Slater's Pro, that's $125 there for the Cube. But that Kelly Slater's Pro Surfer, that was in the collection. Ikaruga, $58. I have this on the Dreamcast as well as a digital copy on the Switch. Again, I got to stop that double dipping. But we have Batman Vengeance. That was another game that I had, $25. And I really loved the final boss fight. That was pretty dramatic. Pac-Man World 2 there. That's coming in at $21. Rebel Assault for $23. Look at that. In Japan, again, that's a game that can easily reach over 10,000 yen. And what was that? A purple grape controller. But here we have some Sega Genesis. We got Sonic 2 for $14. Now I'll have one more video from my visit in the States, but I'm thinking that these videos are not very popular just because of the low traction. But anyhow, if you've watched these videos, a big shout out. Thank you so much for the support. And I do like seeing like the bins here just because it's kind of reminiscent of the old hard off. Here we have a Dreamcast, the Sega Genesis Model 2 for $65. Gone are the days when both of these Segas were just in stacks at the Super Goodwill in downtown Portland. I remember I was buying all the Model 2s just to get the correct variant that I wanted. It was crazy, and they had them in stacks, $10, $5. And that was like around 2014, 2015, something like that. So about 10 years ago. Dreamcast games, what do we have? Extreme Sports for $17. And then Ooga Booga for $38. That was like one of the final Dreamcast releases. It was such a sad time. MDK2, I still want to add that to my collection. Grandia 2 for $63. I beat that many years ago. And then what's that? Action 98, not really sure. Darius Gaiden for $45. I remember picking up a copy at Toys R Us. Out in Kennewick, Washington, we have Sylphied there for $30. And what do we have here? More Dreamcast, but quite a bit of Sega hardware. It's always nice to see that. They even got a Master System. That's coming in at $170, $90 there for the, well, that's the At Games version. Don't be fooled there. What else do we have? We got some VMUs down below. Genesis 3 and a few 32X games with Mortal Kombat 2 and Primal Rage. Primal Rage on the PlayStation 1 in Japan is pretty expensive. But there it is, The Adventures of Batman and Robin. Although I picked it up at a different location. And then Beavis and Butthead. I had the Super Nintendo version of that. And it's a bad game, but it's one that I really enjoyed. Even the music was kind of like goofy and neat. Alicia Dragoon for $66 on the old Jenny. I did bring back some of my Sega Genesis games from the States, but here we have a Sega Sports Dreamcast. I didn't quite catch the price there, but it's probably going to be close to $200. What else do we have here? Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego for $19 on the Master System. And then they had Phantasy Star there for what, 90 some? $93. And what else do we have? X-Men. That's coming in at $18. And Zombies Ate My Neighbors for $49. Although I recommend the Super Nintendo version. We have Spider-Man, Super Smash TV for the Genesis for $25. But yeah, it's Buster's Hidden Treasure. Buster Bunny's Hidden Treasure there for, what was that, 30 or 40 bucks? Which, you know, I kind of prefer that game over the Super Nintendo version, but we have Rocket Knight Adventures for 88. I brought that back with me, by the way. Not that copy, my own copy, which I have had in the collection for many, many years. The Lawnmower Man for 30. I forget that was released on Genesis. I played the Super Nintendo version, which it isn't too bad of a game. What do we have? Another Captain America, 40 bucks. I forget. I think it was like 50 some at Sunken Treasures. And we have Earthworm Jim for 60. That's a great game on the old Sega. As well as Garfield Caught in the Act for 37. That has amazing visuals for a Sega game. Excellent animation here. But we have some Nintendo games. We got Punch Out there. A little bit hard to see the prices. But you know what? Legendary Wings. I'm kind of thinking, I don't know what the fate of my Famicom games are going to be. And it's, you know, there's a lot of great games, but I've pretty much completed a lot of them, and I don't know if I'll ever be going back to them. And, you know, kind of selling that stuff off will make up space and also provide funds for more coveted items. You'll know how it goes. You all saw the sign in the front, buy, sell, and trade. That's the way that I do it. 220 for the AV Famicom. And I believe that one only has RF, if I'm not mistaken. Then we have Holy Diver for 40. I still want to play that, though, so I can't get rid of the Famicom just yet. Moon Crystal for 40. I think these are, Sweet Home for 40. These are like fan-translated games. But it's pretty cool. Look at that. What do we have there? What's that? For 45. Didn't quite catch that. We got the Orange Spice Cube and a couple of imports. That could be a Japanese version. I think it is, judging by the box. Final Fantasy 12 on the PS2 for 43. I remember going to the midnight release of that. I didn't pick up the game, but a friend did. 54 there for Gradius 3. That's the Super Famicom version. The Seventh Saga by Enix, 80 bucks there for Secret of Evermore. And then we have Mario Paint. And then the NES action set for 370 bones. We got a Game Genie. The Game Genie, that thing was popular back in the day. And then 80 bucks for what I'm assuming is like a little storage case there. And this is, look at all this glorious PlayStation and Xbox 360. And at the very end, we got PS1. But look at this. The selection here. The selection here is great. And I believe Video Game Wizards, I don't know if they do so now, but back when I was living in Portland, they were one of the big sponsors of the Portland Retro Game Show. And they always had like a big area at the show, like right at the entrance, that, a primetime spot. Of course, they're one of the bigger sponsors. But we have Onimusha Dawn of Dreams for 50. Now the Japanese version supports full English language options, and you can find it for about 60 cents. But getting out to Japan, that's a whole nother story. Sly 3 for 18. Shadow of Rome for 27. I believe that one was published by Capcom, at least in Japan. What else do we have for the old PlayStation 2? I recently got another PS2. I got a PS2 50,000. It removes the little that link connection, whatever, but it adds in the infrared little sensor, and it's a white one, and I paid $14 for it at the I got it at the junk section at a hard off. It was about 2,000 yen, which is, what's that, like $16, something like that. The orange box, $32. A masterpiece of a game. And the Japanese version, full English language options, and it is backwards compatible with the Series X. Highly recommend the orange box. It's so good. What's this? Gunship for $9. And then the Hard Drag Racing as well. And then Chess. Look at that name, Chess, for $7. What else do we have in here? There were a few temptations, I'm not going to lie. They also had a copy of MDK. I should have picked MDK up and MDK2. Now, I did have one pickup here, as I had one trade-in. I traded in a Neo Geo CD title, Fatal Fury the newcomer, no, Real Bout 2. I traded that in, and I got like $60 in trading credit, which I thought was, very, very good. And it was just like my double copy, because I have one here with me in Japan, and I so happened to have one at my parents' house, so I just decided to get rid of it. WCW Nitro, $8. I think the N64 version is going to be superior. I used to play that version back in the day. What else do we have in here? Let's go to the showcase. Well, all this is the showcase. Tekken 2 for 15. Tempest X for 17. Hey, that's not bad. And then what do we have here? Wild Arms for 70. Warcraft 2 for 41. I wonder if that one supports like the mouse. We got some long box titles with 3D Lemmings for 23. I do want to get the Adventures of Lomax. That's something that I've been wanting for years, but I want the North American version. I want it to be in full English. Resident Evil 2 for 49, 55. The Director's Cut for 39. Rayman, a masterpiece of a platforming game, $18. And then one, I used to have this way back in the day, $15. Next to Omega Boost, coming in at 51 and 39 respectively. Could be missing the manual, that less expensive one. 92 for Mega Man Legends, next to Metal Gear Solid. MDK for 13, there it is. And then Legacy of Kain. What else do we have? Beyond the Beyond for 55. Capcom vs. SNK Pro for 67. I do like that version. And then we have Courier Crisis for 17. Now the Japanese Saturn version of Courier Crisis can be quite expensive. $58 for Doom. I have the Japanese version of that, which is pretty much all in English, if I remember correctly. Final Fantasy VII for 17. Hey, that's not bad. But yeah, one. That was definitely on my mind, but I didn't pick it up. And so was MDK. And then they also had Medieval there. I believe that one also got like a remake on the PlayStation 4. But you don't often hear too much about either of those. Anyhow, let's see what's up. Oh, they got the Pokemon Shrine. What do we have in here? 42 for DX there on Pokken Tournament DX. I wonder how that game is. Pokemon Sun for 21. 325 for Soul Silver. 280 for the 3DS XL. I have no idea about Pokemon, but yeah. It's going to be expensive anywhere because Pokemon is gold right now at the moment. And this is more up my alley. Forget about Pokemon. We got D here. 158. That one kept me in the store for an additional 20 minutes. But 220 for Lunar 2. 102 for the first edition. I do want to get the remasters. And then we have Castlevania Symphony of the Night for 183. 150 for the greatest hits. I paid $20 at Gameopoly out in the Dalles, Oregon. But that store is no longer around. But it has been rebranded. I forget the name, and unfortunately I didn't have time. Otherwise I would have stopped in and made a video. What do we have? Torneko. That's the Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior, as it was once known in the States. Now here we have some PlayStation Portable titles with the big one. I'm going to go right in. Ultimate Ghouls and Ghosts for $29, $30. Wipeout Pure there for 7 and 8. What do we have? Taito Legends Powered Up, $12. That's a pretty good collection. You're going to get the original Rastan, but you should definitely go for the Taito Collection Volume 3 on the Switch. That's the ultimate one because you're going to get 1, 2, and 3, with 3 being really awesome. The Sega Genesis Collection for $15. I have that digitally. What else do they have here? We got some Iron Man for $14. Killzone Liberation for $9. I have a copy of that, and it's sealed. I found it here at a hard off, and it's the North American version, but I don't know. It doesn't really call to my attention. I might have to go to the chopping block, if you know what I mean. And then Darius Gaiden, 105 and 120 for Astal. And then we have Flink there for 193. Enemy Zero for 220. Oh, I want that. But 220 big ones, man. Then we have Elf for 160. Fantasy Star, and then Blasphemous, $500, and it's missing the card. I think that's the limited run collector's card, trading card thingy. But yeah, I do have that Team 17 release. Futurama, 252 for the Xbox. Had no idea that was that expensive. 110 for Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Karaoke Revolution, 165. And then Mega Man 5 for 135. Rayman 2, The Great Escape on the N64. And then ActRaiser 2 for 100. That's not too bad. I do want to play that ActRaiser 2. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the old Game Gear for 17. They have a Lynx there too. And there it is for WonderSwan. Makaimura 170. Finally added that into my collection. I got it at the Surugaya in Denden Town in Osaka during my stay there. Absolutely love that game too. And look at the TurboGrafx CD system card for 70. Kadash there for 125. And then JJ and Jeff. Look at that. I have my own game. That's hilarious. What else do we have here? Look below for items. Oh yeah, 3DO. 130 for Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Look at Akuma on the cover there. And Captain Quasar for 102. I have a game. And then Blade Force for 25. 36 for Gex. And the long box of Blade Force was like $35. Is that correct? I recently found that, well, a few months ago, sealed out in Tomado in Tochigi Prefecture. I still need to pop that one open. What else do we have here? Game Boy Advance games. But as you can see, they got it all, man. At least not everything, so to speak, but a good variety of different platforms. But then this is a nice touch, as I mentioned. They got those Magic type cards bundled in with the games. It's pretty neat. Nintendo Power, 103 there. My goodness. And these guys, 55 there for Contra 4. That's not bad. That is not bad at all. In today's day and age, mind you. What else do we have here? We got some DS games. More DS games. And then PlayStation 5. And then look at this. The Samsung GX TV. Now, those little doors are actually the speakers. And I remember a good friend of mine actually used to have one of those. I don't know about its quality, but, that's definitely a collectible item. And then Dante's Inferno for $19 with the Divine Edition there. Coming in at 16. Well, they're all Divine Edition, but one has the slip cover. And then Eco and Shadow of the Colossus Collection for 15. That does support stereoscopic 3D. Mass Effect Trilogy for 17. Although it's probably better to get the Mass Effect Trilogy on newer generation hardware. We got Rayman Origins there for 16. That's a great game. And some sports titles. And then Castlevania Circle of the Moon for 53. I remember all 3 Game Boy Advance games. I came to this store and I traded all 3 complete in the box. And I ended up getting like a couple of games, a few games, and a PlayStation Vita. And I still have that Vita. 320 there for that 2DS bundle. But I still have that Vita that I picked up at Video Game Wizards many years ago. And they were I think they were nearer to the Clackamas Mall. They have changed locations, so they're closer to Portland proper. Solar Fox there for 38. And then check this out. Again, a big thanks to the staff for letting me behind the counter. They're going to put these out, but The Adventures of Batman and Robin. Now, I beat this game. I rented it. And y'all saw the price, but that's probably how it goes in today's day and age. But let's take a look at these stacks. Super Metroid 346, Super Punch Out, Super Mario Kart, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Mega Man X, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Tournament Fighters, Krusty Super Funhouse, Maximum Carnage, Spawn. And we're definitely going to have a closer look at these, at these games. And look at this. Chester Cheetah, Too Cool to Fool. And he was the mascot for what is it? Gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Cheetos. Come on, get with it. Stunt Race FX. What else? And then Super R-Type for $86. Now, the Super Famicom equivalents, not all of these games that were released in Japan, like the Adventures of Batman and Robin. I don't think Chester Cheetah as well as Spawn were released in Japan, but a lot of these games in some respect are going to be less expensive. But if you're a collector of North American releases, this is the place to go. The Illusion of Gaia for $99. Now, I did pick that one up. And with the store, after deducting like the 65 that I got, it was like 30 some bucks, which I'm cool with that. But Illusion of Gaia, I rented that like on 2 occasions, and that's how I ended up beating it. But look at this beautiful cover, 346, 24 megs of action. Now this does support full English and Japanese language options, as does the Japanese release. And then look at this, RoboCop versus Terminator, the Terminator. I remember seeing that copy, copies of this game at Sears, and that's coming in at $237. And then Killer Instinct for $145. Now I have the loose cart, which I picked up at Sunken Treasures for $19, and I also have the soundtrack CD, which I got from a friend many years ago. Super Punch Out for $147. But yeah, there's certainly a charm to these physical releases, which is there's like a huge argument going on with game preservation, but the store aspect, the physicality of it, that's certainly a part of it. It's not all of it, but it's certainly a part of it. X-Men: The Mutant Apocalypse, I used to own this. That one's coming in at $105, and I paid like $20 at a KB Toys late in the Super Nintendo life cycle. UN Squadron for $101. Super Ghouls and Ghosts for $151. But yeah, this is definitely a part of the story of video games, like this whole like physical aspect to it. Now, whether you buy it or not, that's entirely like personal things, and it has nothing to do with preserving it. But just the fact that it's there, beautiful thing. 107, Where Racing Becomes an Adventure. Ain't That a True Story? Super Mario Kart. Love that game. An excellent game. And then we have Wolfenstein 3D there for 108. Mega Man X, I used to have this complete, 157. That would make a great poster for the game room. Mega Man X, such a legendary game on the Super Nintendo. Maximum Carnage, 188. Now I did bring my game. I do have this, but I just have the loose cart, and I'm cool with that. Featuring music by Green Jelly. Now the music is awesome in this, better than the Genesis version, and I've played both. Turtles in Time for 137. Now, I have the Cowabunga collection now. That's one of the games that I picked up, and I'm good with that. I don't think... yeah, actually, 137. Now, the Super Famicom version is like 200 and some, so it's definitely less expensive. 145 for Spawn, the video game. Now, I do want a copy of this. This looks pretty cool. Very, very cool. And then there it is, Chester Cheetah. Too Cool to Fool. Now, visually, it doesn't look bad. Now, gameplay-wise, I don't know. But look at that. It looks very colorful. By Kaneko. They're the publisher, but I'm not sure who is the developer. Earthworm Jim 2 for 164. Now, I believe this is better than the Genesis version, but the first one is better on the Jenny. And I do have part 1 on the Super because I like the music better. The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, 127. I beat that, but on the Game Boy Advance. And then Vidiots, the Ren and Stimpy Show. What was the price of that? I didn't quite catch that as I was reading the title. The Illusion of Gaia, this is, I'm looking at it right now, $99. Definitely going to replay this. And they even gave me the protected cover, which is pretty cool. Beavis and Butthead 88. This one was a little bit tempting, like I said. I used to own this. And something about it, it's just such a goofy game, but, Viacom New Media, made in Japan. And then look at that, the 3DO Gold Star, which is now known as LG. A PlayStation 3, a Sega CD, all sorts of great hardware. And then they have the Wii Mini in the box for 140. That thing was such a weird little machine. And there it is, Torneko, The Last Hope, the world of 172. And then Sega Classics Collection 14. I paid more, but whatever. Finally have it. But anyhow, that's going to be it for this episode. We're going to end here on the Zelda Shrine, 440 there for the 3DS XL. And stay tuned because there's going to be more content. I'm going to hit up a Gaia as well as, making some videos straight out of the game room talking about collecting and all that good stuff. So stay tuned. Ciao.